Batman and Superman appear to be at a standstill. Let's get John Constantine involved. Welcome to the Complete Story Series. We take trade paperbacks and single issues and we break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then we read it dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Don't forget to support this great industry by buying these books online at your digital retailer or going to your local comic book store. When we last left off, the Green Lanterns came down to try and arrest Superman, but it didn't quite work as he pummeled the planet of Mogo and destroyed the Green Lantern Corps. Now what's going to happen with magic getting involved?
And that brings us to today, the end of the Green Lantern battle, with John Constantine looking at a Green Lantern sitting on what was once a house that contained someone really close to him, Rose Constantine. You see, John's daughter was hidden from everyone to avoid the problems that came with his line of work. That is until Superman and Batman's battle brought it to her. And so begins the next chapter of this war. Dr. Fate can feel the very fabric of reality tearing as there's a loud knocking at the door to the Tower of Fate, Batman's team's hideout. Zatanna and Dr. Fate get ready, with their powers charging to face whatever was able to find the Tower of Fate. And when Zatanna opened the door, she found John Constantine there with his daughter. Hello, Z. Being the masters of magic that the three of them are, John explains that he was feeling something magically watching him in Liverpool, and Dr. Fate confirms that there is something going on, and he can feel that it has aligned itself with Superman. But none of them know who or what this is. So John asks Z to send him to the world's greatest detective, Detective Chimp. This is John Constantine though, and he has his own plans to put into action, so after recruiting Detective Chimp, he decides to make a stop in hell, to Trigon's domain to ask him, do you still have that piece of my soul? Yes, little magician. I have tamed the piece that you sold in hell. Well, I'm here to let you know, your daughter Raven was removed from battle by something big and nasty working for Superman. What is it? I don't know yet, but when I find out, will you be ready to act? I do not trust you, little magician. Why share this with me? Well, since you own a piece of my soul and plan to torture me for all eternity, maybe I can get some time off for good behavior. Trigon puts him down and closes the door to hell. Find my daughter, and do not bother me until you do. Meanwhile, over at the Hall of Justice, Superman, Hal Jordan, and Sinestro are trying to figure out what happened to the Flash, Robin, Cyborg, and Raven. They've all been taken by Batman's team and no one can seem to find them, which automatically leads Superman to believe that there is something new in play. Magic. Meanwhile, Batman is meeting with John so that John can introduce him to Detective Chimp and show both of them where he's keeping Raven, because if his plan goes south, he wants someone to know where she's bound, otherwise she'll be there for all of eternity. And he explains to Batman and Chimp that he is getting involved because he wants revenge. Superman took Rose's mother away, and while he can't bring her back in any form that you would want watching a child, he can do the revenge thing, because he's good at that. Back at the Hall of Justice, Sinestro brings in the last man to see the location of Batman's prisoners, and Superman threatens Officer Sprague's family if he doesn't help. While over at the home of Jason Blood, otherwise known as Etrigan, Batman's team and all of the magic users that will work with Constantine are preparing their plans. Almost everyone is on board with this new magical turn, except for Harvey Bullock. This is getting a bit too crazy for him, so he turns away from the group and he prepares to leave. As he opens the door, Detective Chimp comes over to tell him, "You can't think like that. Things will get crazy, but you should honor Commissioner Gordon after his sacrifice. He would have stayed. But with the door open, there isn't any magical protection on the home, and Clarion can feel it. Something's coming." Jason Blood shouts for them to shut the door, and he runs to it with Harvey pushing it as hard as he can, but it's too late, as it's blown off the hinges and turns Jason Blood and Harvey into mush, and it throws Detective Chimp to the ground. Spectre has arrived, and he isn't here to play nice. Clarion and Zatanna try to get the protection magic back up and running, while Harley Quinn is upset because Detective Chimp's little hat fell off. Batman looks to Batwoman and Huntress. "Look for an exit. We need to get out of here now." And Constantine snaps at him. "That's the spirit of vengeance out there. Do you really think he'll be fooled by hiding in another room? You think he could protect us from the Spectre? You could barely walk after your injury. You're bloody useless." So Batman punches Constantine in the nose, and he turns to Zatanna. "As soon as you feel the attack stop, I want you to teleport everyone out of here. I'm going out there to talk to him. He is the spirit of vengeance and he punishes criminals. We have something in common." Batman walks out the front door and he calls out, "Spectre!" Back inside, Constantine snaps to and he asks Clarion what's going on. Batman is talking to the Spectre. Jesus, the size of the coconuts on Batman. Zatanna turns to everyone and teleports them out of the house and back to the Tower of Fate, which doesn't fool the Spectre for even 1 second as he grabs Batman. Deceiver! Zatanna then reappears, grabs Batman, and warps away. He walks over to Constantine. You did that on purpose. Because you've been off your game, and if we're gonna have a chance to take down Superman, I'm gonna need Batman. Over on the other side of the tower, Harley is demanding that the Doctor come in right now. They need his help! But Dr. Fate has to explain, he isn't that kind of doctor. She demands to know what kind of doctor he is. It's complicated. Then lead me to my operating room, Mr. Fate. Meanwhile, back at the Hall of Justice, Sinestro is torturing Officer Sprague, and since he hasn't given up any information, Superman enters to tell him to stop the torture. It doesn't take much for Sinestro to convince Superman to let him continue though, as Superman walks out of the room as Officer Sprague continues to scream. Superman then enters the main hall, while Spectre appears to let him know there are new powers at work against him. Over in the tower, Constantine takes Batman with him to the one person that can tell them if their plans will work. At first, Madame Xanadu doesn't want to help Constantine. Everyone close to Constantine dies, and Constantine even gives Batman a chance to leave now. Walk away before someone gets hurt. But they've gone too far. So after she copes with the death of Jason Blood, she reveals the future to Constantine and Batman. The green will grow, hellfire will burn, a dead man will fall and a dead man will rise. The Empress awakens and the Emperor sleeps. Souls will be lost and traitors triumph. The advisor vanishes and the Joker returns. Batman looks shocked. The Joker returns? That's impossible. And on that note, Constantine puts his plan into motion. Things begin with Clarion's cat knocking over one of the candles that binds Raven, freeing her astral spirit. The first thing she does is take off to tell Superman to come for her, warn him where she is now. But the cat knocking over the candle wasn't an accident. It was all a part of the plan. Superman takes off at top speeds, leaving behind Spectre and everyone, and he makes his way to a magical house, one so powerful that no matter how hard he hits the door, he can't get in. It literally hurts his hand. So plan B, he uses the yellow ring to make a construct and tears the building in half. And inside, he finds Raven lying there bound. He gives it a clap and the gust of wind destroys the circle holding her. Raven then gets up thanking him, but while Superman isn't paying attention, Raven becomes a series of rags that wrap around him. The being that is obviously not Raven tells Superman that he can feel his murdering soul, and Constantine steps out. I know, pretty dramatic, isn't it? This is obviously not Raven, it's Ragman, known as Rory to his friends. You don't get to call him Rory. The suit of rags absorbs corrupted souls and it traps them inside the cloak until they're atoned for their sins. But you literally murdered a planet. I guess you'll be trapped in there until the stars burn out. Superman then burns through the bindings with his heat vision and he shouts out, "Spectre!" Yeah, he's probably looking for you right now, but this place is pretty well hidden. You could only find it because we wanted you to. Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, the Spectre arrives to tell everyone that he's gone. Superman is missing and he can't sense him. So Lex Luthor gets on the computer and he tries to find the exact location of Superman's earpiece. At that moment, Constantine gets a little too cocky and he lets Superman continue to struggle. Superman reaches up and he hits his communicator yelling, "Shazam!" As he is a being of magical power, Shazam can hear his name being called and at the speeds of lightning, he appears next to Superman. "Ragman, get him!" Constantine yells out. "I can't. Shazam is an innocent." So Shazam grabs Ragman and he holds him up and shouts, "Shazam!" And a bolt of magical lightning comes through the roof, burning Ragman and causing a massive explosion that reveals their location to the rest of the regime. Constantine looks in horror as Spectre appears and grabs Ragman. He then begins to tear the cloak apart, freeing the souls to be judged by him, not this Ragman. He then takes off Ragman's mask to tell him it is time for his vengeance. Rory calls down to Constantine asking him for help, but Constantine turns his back to Rory, telling him, "Sorry, mate." As Spectre kills Rory to the shock of Shazam, Superman gets up. "Now you die, you little shit." He grabs Constantine and he demands to know where Raven is, but Shazam asks him, "Stop, Superman, please." So Superman puts down Constantine and thanks Shazam for coming to his rescue. He knew he would be here. Shazam takes Constantine and the whole group begins to head back to the Hall of Justice, where Sinestro is offering to get information out of Constantine. But things take an eerie turn mid-flight, as Deadman is waiting for them to pass through. And when Shazam comes near him, he possesses Shazam, and then he drops Constantine. John falls farther and farther until a top hat catches him, and Zatanna is waiting for him. Superman then turns around to ask what's going on, as Shazam holds his head, confused as to why he did that. Inside, Deadman and the young boy that becomes Shazam are both inside of Shazam, and they're kind of arguing as to what is going on. Billy wants to know what this is, and Deadman says that this is odd. He's never shared the inside of a person before. But not to worry, he'll return Billy's body after he speaks to Spectre. Deadman would like to know why the Spectre is siding with anyone in this war. Billy stares him down. I don't need all of my body. And in the real world, he calls out, Shazam! Turning himself back into Billy Batson. Spectre catches the boy and he looks at him, and you can see that there are 3 minds inside of him. The Spectre reaches inside and he yanks Deadman out of Billy. So Deadman takes his chance. I won't be speaking to you today, Spectre. I want to speak to the man inside, Jim Corrigan. The two of them stare at each other and Deadman asks, is he even in there? The Spectre then gives an evil grin, and Deadman looks scared. You're not Jim Corrigan, are you? Who are you? The Spectre then sends Deadman on, because as he tells Superman, the only thing here is a spirit that forgot to fade on. He'll help him. He uses his sword of vengeance to cut Deadman in half, and his essence begins to leak out of him, so he begins to drift away. Meanwhile, at the Tower of Fate, Constantine is trying to decide what to do next, and Batman storms in telling him that he should have told him about this plan. So Constantine takes Batman with him for the next piece of it. To the first part of the prophecy, the green will grow. They then walk to the heart of the green, Swamp Thing's swamp. Back with Deadman, he drifts to the Himalayas, to Nana Parbat, to ask the goddess to fix him. Don't let him fade away. He has so much more to accomplish. And she tells him that she can't do that. It is time for the Deadman to move on, and for another one to replace him. So he asks her, can I pick my own successor then? And she tells him she knows his choice. It's a wise one, and one that will return order. Back in the swamp, John asks his old friend Swamp Thing to aid them, but Swamp Thing tells him that he has already sided with Superman. Superman's cause will save the green, and that is his only concern. And John looks at him. I don't want you as an enemy. Nor I you, John. As John and Batman leave the swamp, John says to Batman, we're going to have to kill Swamp Thing. Meanwhile, back in Nana Parbat, Deadman smiles as his replacement arrives. The man reaches down and he holds Deadman's hand as Deadman begins to fade off. Thank you for choosing me. It's gonna be good to help again. And Deadman tells him, you were the only choice, Dick Grayson. Find Jim Corrigan, Grayson. He is at the heart of this, and tell Batman, tell your dad, goodbye for me. With that, Deadman transfers his power to Dick Grayson, making him the new Deadman. Over in the Tower of Fate, Constantine gathers the group to explain the situation and the prophecy. The green will grow, the hellfire will burn. That Swamp Thing and the hellfire could be a number of things. A dead man will fall, and a dead man will rise. That's already happened as well. The Empress awakens, and the Emperor sleeps. And Catwoman chimes in, who's the Empress? And that's when Detective Chimp walks back over. That's Wonder Woman. My sources say that she's been asleep since this began. Did we do this? Constantine rolls his eyes. Yes. And she shouldn't be able to wake up, but those Amazons have some crazy gods on their side. Meanwhile, the Phantom Stranger takes Spectre into space to walk the rings of Saturn and figure out what's going on. It's not like the Spectre to side with anyone in a battle such as this. The Spectre explains that he's just keeping the balance. Superman has made things more balanced than it ever has been before, and the Stranger tells him that Superman is not the one that he serves. So Spectre grabs the Phantom Stranger and begins shoving him through the rings and into the planet. While the Spectre is occupied removing the Phantom Stranger as a threat, Superman realizes that his protection from magic is gone. And suddenly, he hears a booming voice. The smell of brimstone, the odor of death, the stench of hellfire, on Etrigan's breath! Etrigan appears and he begins burning everyone with hellfire. Superman tries to put his hand over Etrigan's mouth, but it just burns him, and Etrigan cracks him over the head. Meanwhile, back in space, the Spectre can sense that Superman is in trouble, and he tries to leave, but the Phantom Stranger grabs him. You think me powerless, Spectre? I am eternal. So the Spectre turns to him and stabs him through the stomach. Nothing is. Rest, stranger. You have earned it. Back over at the Hall of Justice, Superman knocks Etrigan out the wall and into space. Why attack me, Etrigan? What do you want? It's nothing personal. A deal was done. Superman grabs Etrigan by the chest. What deal was done? What have you agreed to? Nothing crazy. Just to keep you close. Gone, oh Etrigan, rise instead the form of. And then he changes into Batman. Surprised, Superman asks, Bruce? He throws magical powder into Superman's face, and Superman begins to feel woozy and tired, and he turns back to Bruce. You made a deal with the demon? You refuse to stand beside me and fix the world, but you'll stand against me with hell? He then hits the ground, asleep, and Batman walks away. Dream of the man you should have been, and never wake to this nightmare again. And that is the end of Injustice Year 3, Volume 1. We'll be back real soon with Volume 2, so stay at the edge of your seats because this is about to get even more interesting. Thank you and have a good night.